Race 2 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. We're in Park City, Utah, the track at which skeleton finally became an Olympic discipline 20 years ago, back in 2002. And after 5 years hiatus, we are back. Hello everybody, Martin Haven and Laura Dees, bronze medalist in this morning's women's skeleton race, ready to talk you through the action in our second and deciding heat. And Laura, got an entertaining battle shaping up for the medals, just like in your race. Big clump of athletes going for bronze. Ji-soo currently in third place, but it's not all over.
It absolutely isn't over. It's all still to play for. It's so close at the top. We're talking a couple of hundreds between the athletes, and this is a track where it comes at you really fast. Anything can happen. Mistakes are easily made.
Well, he is 1900ths off the lead, but we have a very tight battle for victory. Just 400 separating the man who is in second place, Jung Seung-gi, from the race leader. So that really is anybody's.
Put down a great run, and I think at this stage it's as much a mental game as anything else. Who can stand on the start block and believe that they can win?
Well, the last man to win on this track in a World Cup race was Korea's Sunbin Young. The current leader, though, is not the 2018 Olympic champion, it's the 2022 Olympic champion, Christopher Grotheer. So he leads by just 0.04 of a second. You can give that much away in the start or at any one of the 15 corners on the way down. So very tight battle for the lead, just as we saw in the women's race. And then a big squabble, again, a sort of 4-5 athlete pack potentially going for that bronze. But we've never had a Korean 1-2. We could get a Korean 1-2 here if Christopher Grotheer has any sort of problems. Matt Weston last in the field after popping the groove at the start and barely even making it onto the sled. I mean, it was an absolute horror.
It was every skeleton athlete's worst nightmare, and you know, he had to try and make a split-second decision as to what to do. Do I get on the sled? Do I try and take it back? And he just did the best he could with that. You know, the situation that was presented to him with the sled, unfortunately, popping out of the groove. And sometimes it happens. There's nothing you can do about it other than just try and get on the sled and be safe. Yeah,
absolutely right. And actually, that's key because, okay, we talked about last week the fastest ice on the planet, Whistler. You know, here you know, by corner 6 you're still doing 80+ miles an hour. So there's no messing about. You've got to have your wits about you here.
Absolutely, you definitely want to make sure you're in the right position on the sled as well. That completely changes how the sled handles if you're in the wrong spot. So for Matt, he needed to get on that sled and get into some sort of position where he could at least navigate down the track and try and gain some speed back somehow.
Well, he's first away as we go last to fast. 19 sleds in the second heat, so he does at least get a second heat. And Peter McCready's from Australia, our rookie, will go off second. Evan Neufeldt, Florian Auer, Blake Enzie and the rest will follow them until we get into the battle for the medals. And that probably is Yin Zheng and Chen Wenhao of China up to our leader, Christopher Grotheer, who goes last to defend his lead. Second race of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Championships World Cup, and a chance of redemption for Matt Weston. His teammate Laura Dees watching him this time load safely and quickly.
That's a lovely push from Matt, and he's just going to be looking to prove a point here to himself as much as to anyone else, to navigate as fast as he can down this track and just show what he's capable of and gain some experience for the next time he comes back, because this is the first time he's seen this ice this week.
Yeah, and actually, given that he had such a horrendous start and his mind must have been an absolute melt, he had a pretty good looking run.
He did, and you can see from that speed there that he produced coming out of corner 6 just how much potential there is in his performance here, and just taking a tap there. But generally speaking, this is obviously a much better run for Matt, and great speed at the bottom as well. So hopefully he can take some positives away from his experience, even though obviously it hasn't gone exactly how he would have wanted it to.
All right, well, let's take a look at that one run in isolation. 48.37. Fourth fastest run of the first heat was a 48.35. So that was a top 5 run, and that's with no knowledge of the track. 6 training runs only ever in his career.
Oh, can we start again, please?
Yeah, well, if we can cancel the first heat, Matt, you'd be in a much better place.
Absolutely. At least he can leave this track knowing what potential is there.
Yeah.
You know, he did get the sled down the track nice and quickly on this run, even, you know, without a perfect run. So there's so much potential there for the future.
Well, there was the tap, but it was much less...
Maybe next race.
Well, the good news is, definitely next race, he's got that potential. He knows he has, and you know, we know he has, and so, yeah, okay, everybody gets thrown from the horse occasionally.
Absolutely, and it's all about building that confidence through the season as well, like knowing the potential that you've got when you go to the start block and start there. You've got to believe that it's going to be good, and it takes time to build that up.
Jackie Narracott helping with the sled for teammate Peter McCready's man from, like Jackie, Brisbane in Queensland. Comes from a Greek Cypriot background. First ever World Cup start. He's got lots of experience on this track, though, in lower categories of racing.
It looked like a really nice smooth load onto the sled compared to his first run. He's looking very relaxed and navigating his sled really quietly down the track here.
I think, you know, it's understandable. Lots of athletes do, although they try and, you know, put it out of their head. I'm sure they have kind of first-run nerves when you're in first time in the World Cup. It's a very different environment.
It is, it's completely different, and it does take time to get used to just the amount of people, TV cameras and all sorts. So, yeah, it takes a little bit of time to find your feet, and a couple of errors just creeping into this run here, but hopefully he can take loads of positives from his debut here.
49.94, 49.96 in the first run, so he's right where he was in the first heat. There's Jackie Narracott, and she doesn't often have a male counterpart here, you know, occasional runs from either, well, now for the first time ever from Pete, but usually from one of the twins.
Yeah, on teammate duties this week, and
yeah.
As I said in run one, it's really nice to see everyone sort of help each other out.
Yeah.
It's a small sport and we all know each other, so...
Nick and Dean Timmings have been Australia's only representatives in the last 6 or 7 years. I'm trying to remember when John Farrow retired, after 2014, I think. So we haven't had a regular season-long male Australian slider in a long while.
You just saw him trying to keep the sled in a straight line going up that steep hill to the finish line.
OK, so Matt Weston remains in the leader's box. Pete McCready's exit stage left. Next up, Evan Neufeldt. And Evan, well, his comment to his teammate at the bottom, Jane Channel after the first heat, I learnt nothing.
Hopefully he can learn something from this run.
Yes, absolutely. Well, for him, this is very much an emotional experience. He said, you know, when I'm enjoying it, it goes well. And that's the way it works. I've got to enjoy it for it to go well. And you know, sometimes people enjoy it because it went well.
You know what, it's so much easier to enjoy sport when it's going well.
Yeah.
Speaking from personal experience, it's very hard to find that joy sometimes when things aren't clicking. And it's very much a mental sport as well, so that side of things is so important.
Well, anybody heading head first down an ice chute at 90 miles an hour, it is pretty mental, but I know what you mean, yeah.
Cerebral, shall we say.
Yes. I think most fans would agree with mental. 83 hundredths in front, comes down to 63 hundredths as he has a late flop, and again there.
He's certainly letting it fly here. You can see he's trying to do not too much on the sled.
There you go, that was a freer run, 49.54, 49.51 in the first heat, so the track is holding up its pace. Did Evan learn much there? Ken Charles reminds me that John Farrow competed in the 2018 Olympics. So that was his last.
It's safe.
Oh yeah?
Stepmom.
Okay, well, safer than doing his standing backflips.
Yeah, that's riskier than going down the track, I think.
Well, you always have to look for a bit of carpet or a wooden decking. Won't be doing it in St Moritz, maybe.
Nice looking load onto the sled there.
Yeah.
And really good relaxation. You can't help being bounced around there. That's just what happens. But yeah, looking really relaxed.
Well, particularly in slow motion, when you see the body really just sort of wallowing along with the sled, that's what you want. You want to be the damper on the sled. You don't want to be tight and make it chatter.
Exactly. You've got to try and absorb that vibration to help the sled go as fast as possible.
Evan Neufeldt is our race leader. 3 sleds in race 2 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. Next up for Austria, Florian Auer, and a 31 hundredths advantage over Neufeldt from the first heat. Again, like a number of athletes outside the top 10, had just a few too many errors creeping in.
Yeah, he didn't seem too happy with his first run. I remember he was shaking his head as he got off the sled, so hopefully he can make some improvements here.
We He's found a little bit more at the start, 485 compared to 488. The wind's still blustering around a lot. It's hard to see because it's not blowing a lot of snow around, but you can feel it.
You really can at the top. It's quite exposed, so you're quite vulnerable to the weather. This is looking like a really nice run that he's stringing together here.
Second best speed, top speed from Matt Weston. And opening up his advantage, he's nearly doubled it over Evan Neufeldt.
He's sneaking through into corner 12 there, really letting the sled fly.
Key area here, just gets the tiniest of taps. Best speed of all at the bottom. And across the line with a 48.92. And his first run was a 49.20. So getting on for 0.3 quicker.
Yeah, that was a really nice run, and you saw that even when he came out of 14, he made a slight mistake. He touched the wall, but he didn't panic. He didn't try and overcorrect. He let the sled run. And places like that where you're going uphill, it's always quicker to let the sled run.
Well, Florian, like Matt Weston, has never raced here before. Last week was his best ever World Cup result, 7th place in Whistler.
There's a lot of track here to get your head round in only 6 runs. This is exit of corner 10 coming out of the really flat section of the track. You see the sled actually leave the ice there for a minute, just hitting a natural bump in the ice.
Yeah, here the gap between 10 and 11 they call the Wasatch Fault, where the track just goes uphill a little bit. Wasatch Mountains are the range in which we find ourselves. Florian Auer, the leader, from Evan Neufeldt and Matt Weston. We have 15 sleds to go. Alberta Cornfields on the helmet of Blake Enzie from Canada as he blasts off 15th place after the first heat. Race 2 of the Men's Skeleton World Cup here in Park City, Utah. Martin Haven and Laura Dees watching him start. Good, strong start. And again, looking to clear up a couple of errors from the first heat.
Yeah, he did a really good job of navigating through that tricky technical section up at the top and carrying up as much speed as possible into this big corner 6 here, which then leads into a flat section where you want to let the sled flow and run as much as possible.
Nice advantage over Florian Auer from the first heat, 2500s. Not much of that remains.
A nice entrance into 12. He's just losing a little bit of time here and there now. No huge errors, but just bleeding speed a little bit. Can he hold on to the finish line?
Looks like the rhythm is just a little off. He's just a little late everywhere, isn't he? 49.24. First heat was a 48.95, so that's a 0.3 of a second slower run. And he drops down the order. Florian Auer remains in the leader's box.
And when you get a little bit off balance and off rhythm like that, it's so hard to correct it in the moment and try and limit the damage.
And again, between the runs, although you keep the same runner, you can change the setup on the sled a little. So maybe he's felt, okay, I need it to be a bit freer or to give me something different. And then he's kind of overstepped that mark and it's just not quite as controllable.
That's it. And the ice may have changed as well.
Yeah.
The ice might be a bit harder than it was earlier in the day. You've got to be really aware as an athlete of what the weather's doing and what the ice temperature's doing, because that plays a big part into your sport as well. And the longer that you've been doing skeleton for, the more you pick up on those nuances.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
We'll get them next.
And that's where the experience of the coaches can help as well. When you've got, you know, like you have in Team GB, a Martin Stukors and a Matthias Kuchenberger, you know, they've been around the block once or twice. They've got a fair idea of what might happen on this track, which probably a lot of the athletes don't. There is Googie with the sled. At the top of the ice here is Lawrence Bostock. 7th best start, 14th best at the bottom. So we know that the first 50 metres goes well for him.
That's it. Last time out, he had a really nice top section of the track, and that's carried his start speed all the way through down to that middle flat section of the track. And he'll be hoping to put 2 good runs together to consolidate that first run. It's his first experience on this track as well, so he's gaining, every time he goes down the track, he's gaining massive experience that he can bring next time he races here.
I guarantee when you talk to him later, he'll be saying, I got a huge gust of wind at the start. He was 1100 slower.
Yeah, it's tricky conditions up there today for sure.
3600s, the gap, still just about maintaining his advantage over Florian Auer. If he's clean on the exit here, that's not bad.
I think it's going to be really close.
Let's see if he's got speed at the line. Down to 1500s, but a 49.10. Again, slower than his first heat, 48.87, so he came back to Florian Auer.
Yeah, he did a great job holding on to his spot there, actually, because there were a couple of errors crept in further down the track, but obviously he built enough speed by that point earlier in the run that it didn't really matter too much.
1100 slow at the start with computational skeleton mass. That's kind of getting on for 3/10 by the end of the run. So, yeah, he did well to hold on to that advantage.
He did. You can see him doing his best to stay really relaxed there, even though he's not quite where he wants to be. And the sled just popped up at the end of that corner there, which sometimes happens when the track's quick here. You basically just run out of curve and the sled hasn't come off yet. And again, he takes the touch coming uphill, but it doesn't compound with a big skid.
Yeah. Sometimes the hit is better than fighting it and skidding.
Absolutely.
And that's judgment again. And when you've never raced here, those judgment calls are a bit hit and miss.
Exactly.
Alexander Schlinger next up then for Austria. He was in 13th place after the first heat, the yawning 300ths of a second faster than Lawrence Bostock. So again, you know, by the naked eye, this is a dead heat.
It's down to 100th of a second already, so this is going to be really tight. Let's see if Schlinger can hold on to this. A bit late into 4, and you can see the sled just waving more than you probably want it to through corner 4 there.
Quite a long-rangey athlete, so trying to keep that aerodynamic form as an Austrian in Innsbruck is drilled into you from day one.
That's it, you know, the Austrians always have great form.
If you don't have that in Innsbruck, you just go home. Only 100th behind. Can he find the speed at the bottom to get back to Lawrence Bostock? It's going to be close. 14 to 15 will decide it. Great exit, but he takes a bigger hit than Bostock. So he's in the green now. Will he stay ahead at the line? He does.
That was a really great recovery from him. And he stayed so relaxed through that run. I think that served him really well there. It's so important to be aerodynamically good here. And he did a really great job of that.
We talk about different heights and weights. You know, you can be any height or any weight in this sport, but sometimes being tall and heavy can really help.
Yeah, definitely. And there's no one shape or size that makes a perfect skeleton athlete. It's horses for courses, and he obviously makes it work for him.
I'm tall and heavy, and I can't drive a skeleton sled, so it's not about the size. But yeah, again, kept the form and just watch the sled follow the eyes.
See the laser focus on where he wants to go in there.
Well, it's like motor racing. They always said the accident is going to be where you're looking, and that's exactly the same with these sleds, right?
It's very true, yeah.
So Alexander Schlinger is our race leader, and ahead of him by 400, so a much bigger gap, was Vladyslav Heraskevych of the Ukraine. Vlad's brand new helmet livery this season. His father Mikhail on tour again. Pointed out in the first heat that the first time we saw Vlad here was in 2017. It was his second ever World Cup race. It is now his, 40th World Cup start.
He's certainly impressed. Back in 2017, we burst onto the scene with that brilliant second run. Climbed a huge number of spots, and I think that helped secure an Olympic qualification. He's looking really relaxed on the sled and very confident. He knows exactly where he wants to be.
He really holds his form well as well.
He does.
700s back. Don't forget he was only 400s in front. Schlinger was very good at the bottom of the track. Vlad's got speed, the gap's coming back down.
At this point it could still go either way.
Yeah.
It's a lovely looking run.
It is a lovely looking run. I love the way that this is so hard to read because the tiniest difference, again, big exit off corner 14 to 15. Is that going to give him a couple of tenths at the line? 1300s. That's a good run.
That was a really nice run. And you can see that Vlad just understands this track. He instinctively gets it. And that's really important, that you click with the track and you understand, you know, when to press, when to let the sled run.
And some tracks are going to suit your nature as a slider and others are going to be harder work, right?
Definitely. There's always that. Some people prefer the technical, high-speed, high-pressure tracks. Some people prefer the gliding tracks. Some people are great everywhere. But everyone has a natural preference. And sometimes it just comes down to what sled you're on or what your natural driving style is. And it's different for everybody. He's so calm and quiet on the sled there.
Yeah.
And really relaxed coming out of that corner where so many people have had problems in that low point, and he just makes it look so easy.
Yeah, there were a couple, and no more than a couple in the first heat, who just came off there like there was no drama at all. And it, yeah, when when you get a corner right like that, it makes a huge difference.
It's worth a huge amount.
Axel Jungk, 2 bronze medals in the last 2 World Cup races on this track, finds himself down in 11th place. Now, he had a very big weekend last weekend, and he was, of course, our Olympic silver medalist.
Yeah, he would be happy with being down in 11th. He's put a big start together there, and he's building some really nice momentum through the top half of this track.
Now, he had 800s in hand over Vladyslav Heraskevych from the first heat. That is now out to Lily half a second.
Yeah, this is more what we're used to seeing from Axel. Just a beautiful slide, so relaxed.
In fact, the change up in pace is actually showing on the camera shots. He's disappearing from shot as they whip with him.
He made that error on run 1 as well, where he came out of 11 and almost just flopped onto 12. Sled just carried on the corner, ran out.
Best speed everywhere except for here, losing ground back to Heraskevych, but it won't be enough. He leads 48.52, and again that would have been an 8th fastest run in the first heat.
You can see how influential the top part of the track was there, because he had so much speed coming into where he made those mistakes from a beautiful top part of the track that it didn't have a massively detrimental effect in the end.
48.52, not the fastest run of the heat so far. That is a 48.37. You want to hazard a guess at who that was? No. Matt Weston.
Was it indeed?
Yeah. So either Matt got brilliant ice, or he had the afterburners fully lit after the first heat, and I think I know which it was. But again, 14 here, off late. Yeah,
taking that high line that we've seen so many people doing, and then just skidding uphill, which isn't going to help.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, big weekend last weekend in Whistler. Not such a big weekend here, but he is our race leader with 10 sleds to go. So Axel Jungk from Vladyslav Heraskevych. Some of those gaps have opened up. Final 10 sleds, second heat, race 2 at the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup, but the first that our Chinese athletes have been at. This is Yan Wengang, the 25-year-old Olympic bronze medalist from Beijing. In his first official race since the Games, he finds himself in 10th spot. Laura Dees, I mean, after the Olympics, that summer must be just kind of a blur. I'm sure yours was after Pyeongchang, but I can't imagine what these Chinese athletes have been through.
Exactly, and the profile that he will have now in China compared to this time a couple of years ago will be massively different. And, you know, whether that impacts you positively or negatively, you know, that remains to be seen, because sometimes it's easier to be the underdog than the one that everyone is chasing. He's losing a bit of time here.
It's funny, I was having a conversation with a Chinese journalist about a Chinese driver in Formula One, and everybody in China wants to know why he's not winning, because the only athletes they see on TV in China are when they're winning. So they will know Yan and know him more than a Formula One driver. Now, imagine that in any other nation.
That's a huge amount of pressure.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That he's better known than somebody who races Formula One. You know, that would be like you being better known, maybe not than Lewis Hamilton, but you know, than another Formula One driver.
It's incredible to think of that he's carrying that on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And actually, he had a few mistakes in the middle of the run there, but he pulled it back together and had really great speed at the bottom. You see him really just trying to get as much velocity into that side as he possibly can before jumping on. And coming out of the flat section towards 11, super relaxed, letting that sled run, keeping the runners straight.
So 19th World Cup start for Yan. And his career best so far, a 7th place in Samoritz a couple of seasons ago. Andrew Blaser on home ice. A man from Salt Lake City. Let's see what he can produce here. He's had 5 medals, including 2 wins in junior categories on this track.
His first run was actually a really lovely looking run. It's home ice for him here, so he's got a massive amount of experience. So let's see if he can use that experience here in this run to regain the lead. It's quite high through that first pressure in 4, but he knows exactly what he's doing here.
Yeah. He knows where he wants to go. Whether he's actually going there or not is an entirely different question. 2800s behind Axel Jungk. So Jungk's already picked off Yan Wengang.
When you have that familiarity with the track, though, it just gives you so much more brain space to be able to think in the moment and not panic. And you can see that with him on the sled. He's not panicking, he's very relaxed, he's letting the sled run.
He's turning the deficit around a little bit, but it's too little too late, and a mistake off 14 is not as clean as Axel, so he will also fall victim. 48.92 slide, and he had a 48.69 in the first heat, so that definitely didn't go the way Andrew Blaser wanted in the second heat.
No big errors there. I mean, he was high through 14, but again, that will have been a decision to just let the sled run as much as possible rather than a mistake as such. Possibly his setup was better suited to the first run.
Again, or chasing the track, just, you know, you're always trying to second guess the weather and the track evolution, and obviously you can't always get it spot on.
Drifting a little bit later than he would have wanted to go into 11 there as well, probably. Very high in 14, but he manages it well. He decides, you can see there, to take the tap on the low point rather than fight it, and that was a really good decision.
Happy to be sliding in familiar environment with friends and family all around. I'm sure Kendall Westenberg was as well. Another great helmet livery now for Yin Zheng of China. Third fastest start in the heat, 4.60. And he's 45 hundredths away from the lead. But what was his advantage? 13 hundredths over Axel Jungk. So again, that's not an awful lot. That's one error away from dropping back.
He's got a great start, and hopefully he can use that to his advantage here, because it's worth so much on this track.
And again, when we get some of the European tracks, that'll be even more a predominant force. Places like Winterberg and Innsbruck will definitely need your start.
Absolutely. He's looking very relaxed here, letting the sled run. Possibly a bit high through 6. This is the section of the track where you really want to let things run and accelerate, not do too much work, do just enough to keep the sled running forward. High on the exit of 11, and he pays for it in 12. That push away, and it's all just unravelling a little bit here for him.
Going to be very close. Little bump. Oh, look at the speed. Only the 12th best speed. Doesn't have what he needs, so he too drops back. Only the 4th fastest run, 48.81. So he drops a spot. Axel Jungk might need another layer, because it is properly windy down there.
It is pretty chilly out there.
Yeah.
You could see those mistakes just from the midpoint of the track onwards compounding. He didn't really have a chance to get the sled back online, and he paid for that with his downtime, unfortunately. You can really see that how the wind is affecting, blowing snow up into the athlete's face. And he's just too high here. And that means that the sled gets pushed across, and then he has a disrupted entrance to 12, and then he's got to work really hard to try and fix that problem.
And it's the same with if you're driving a car and you turn into a corner late, then you run out of corner before you've gathered it all back up, and it's exactly the same here.
Exactly, and the energy in the sled isn't going forwards, it's going up, down, sideways, all the way you don't want it to go.
So from Yin Zheng now to Chen Wenhao. 7th fastest start for him, 4.64. He is in 7th place after the first heat, and the medals, well, they're 18 hundredths away. That is an achievable margin, according to Laura D's performance this morning. So let's see if he can achieve it.
Absolutely is, and he had a lovely top section of the track on his first run, which stood him in good stead. Looks like he's able to do the same here. Well, actually, early into corner 3.
Yeah.
Fighting to keep it off the wall into 4, and that's just going to push his height later in 4.
And giving away speed early on when you don't have much speed on board harms you much more than a hit in a quick turn.
Absolutely, it multiplies down the track, and because of the flat section that he's going through here, you don't really have a chance to re-accelerate away from your competition too much. You can limit the damage down here, which he's doing, but it's going to be quite a big ask to re-accelerate past his competition.
Well, the medals aren't coming his way. He's going to drop behind Axel Jungk. Don't think he's got enough in the tank. He doesn't. 48.82, so 100 slower than his teammate Chen.
That's so tight, 900s dropping you down to 3rd.
Yeah.
Characteristic of the racing here in Park City, though, it's always super close.
Rubbing the arm.
I think something hurts.
But is that the 14 to 15 hit, I think?
Possibly, yeah. He was probably the highest sled we've seen on the exit of 14, actually. I think at that point, just trying to let the sled run.
Almost stepped on the back of the sled there, didn't he? Almost caught his foot.
Yeah, and you can see the swirling wind in the background behind him. I wonder if that just played in slightly.
Yeah.
And then just here, didn't quite control the sled enough through that first pressure, and he paid for it with the height in the second pressure instead. The energy's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And it went to the roof.
Yeah. Centrifugal force can be your friend, just not often.
Not always.
Not always. 6 sleds to go. Axel Jungk still leads, the man who was 11th after the first heat. And now we start to see the gaps increase a little. 3/10 margin over Axel for Austin Florian of the USA. Oh, pops the groove now. Turns round. The 30-second clock is still running on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
Reset.
He needs to not panic here and reset mentally. He was very switched on there to stop and go back before he crossed that red line, which is what Matt was unfortunately not able to do. And actually, he's probably got a huge amount of adrenaline pumping through him right now, which has produced quite a good push. Let's see if he can hold it together now further down the track and keep his mind on what's in front of him rather than what's just happened at the start.
If popping the groove is ever lucky, he was lucky it happened almost immediately, and he had room to stop and go back and reset. And actually, he had plenty of time as well. There was still 20 seconds on the clock. So
he did, and he's done a good job here. This is a nice looking run so far.
Now don't forget, he had 3/10 in hand over Axel Jungk, but Axel with the second fastest run of the heat so far.
This is going to be really close at the bottom.
That might be enough. It might be enough. To the 100th of a second. Is he in front? He is by 500ths of a second. Well recovered. Yeah.
That was a close one.
That was a close one. And again, you know. Yeah, he hasn't got rid of that huge shot of adrenaline, has he?
No, that's still coursing through him, as you can see. Sometimes when something unexpected happens at the top, it can produce amazing results, because like I said, it just unlocks that extra level.
Okay, pops the groove, disaster.
Yeah.
He has now recorded his best ever World Cup finish.
Yeah.
2 9th places before were his best. He is 6th and no worse despite that.
That's an incredible comeback. What a recovery to be able to do that.
It's going to take him a while to get to sleep tonight. Might be a trip to Red Rock Brewery.
I felt it wiggle.
You did feel it wiggle.
I was scared.
You were scared. Come on, I've aged you. Yeah, there. All right, Austin Florian leads. 5 to go. In the top 5 after the first heat, Felix Keisinger, second fastest starter in the business.
Usually what we see from Keisinger is an incredibly good second run. So let's see if he can do that here today.
He's going to need it to hold off Austin Florian. 500s added to his advantage over Austin from the first heat, so that makes it 700ths of a second. He's opening it up to 13, but that start advantage continues to follow you down.
Hopefully it should continue to multiply for Felix here if he doesn't make any big mistakes through the middle section of the track.
Gaps back down to a 10th. He didn't have the speed that we saw from Austin Florian. 1300s, now he's consolidating. Is this going to be a medal for Felix Keisinger? He's right there in the frame. He's going to deny Austin Florian the lead, but they are first and second, and still we have 4 sleds to go. Anything could happen.
You can see he was really letting the sled fly there through the second part of the track. It's like he knew he was on for a good run. He had the speed on board and he just wanted to finesse it across the finish line.
Again, there are so many parallels with what I do in the summer, you know, race cars. You don't need a time, you know, you feel it's going well, you know it.
You may not know exactly how far ahead you are, but you know when you're having a good run. You can feel the speed in the sled and the momentum building. And sometimes that's actually a bit distracting if you know you're on for a really good run, because then you feel the pressure to not make any mistakes further down the track. But he is so dialed in, you can see there. He's so relaxed.
There you go. That's the second heat Felix Keisinger compared to the first heat Felix Keisinger. So, Keisinger leads from Florian and Jungk. We have 4 to go. Are we, for the second week in a row, and this is properly the curse of the commentator, going to get a Team GB medal in skeleton in men and women? Marcus Wyatt is hoping to back up what Laura Dees did this morning and grab a medal here.
produced the fastest push of the first heat, so I'm hoping he can do the same again here.
Yeah, 4:59, that'll do.
It's a lovely looking push from Marcus, and he's normally so good at staying relaxed and in form on the sled.
He had a really nice looking drive. 14 to 15, he had a bit of a tap and a skid, and that cost him a top 3 finish.
He's building some great momentum here, which he will now be able to carry through the middle section of the track. Look at that speed.
Yep. Way better than Keisinger. The yellow jersey of our World Cup points leader, the winner in Whistler.
It's a lovely entrance to 12 there. It's looking so smooth, quite late into 14, but he knows how to manage that.
Much better run through 14 to 15. This is Marcus Wyatt's bid for a medal. Will it be enough? A 48.28, fastest heat, a fastest run of the heat. Beating finally teammate Matt Weston, who's 48.37, the first sled out of the blocks. There you go. There's the boy giving him the congratulations, Matt, the first there to offer his congratulations.
What a run that was from Marcus.
That was tidied up, the big mistake at the end of the first run.
He did, and Marcus is so good at doing that. He learns so quickly, and his basics are so good as well. He is solid on the sled. His form is impeccable. And he just didn't give anything away. It was just a lovely, smooth run.
And again, even over the crest there, 10 to 11, no skids, no nothing. All right, leader with 3 to go. Our World Cup points leader. Is there a medal in this for the second week in a row? 3 sleds remain at a very blustery Park City. Race 2 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. Martin Haven and Laura Dees looking at who might take the medals. Kim Ji-soo of Korea, 3rd after the first heat. 200s in hand over our World Cup points leader, Marcus Wyatt of Great Britain.
That was a huge statement from Marcus there.
Yeah.
It was a case of come and take it from me.
Well, he equals the start, 4:59, so the gap remains 200s in favour of Kim.
That was a lovely push there.
High on 3, he's lost his lead.
High through corner 4 there. Obviously didn't have the sled exactly where he wanted it going into corner 6 and made that correction. And I think that's just impacted his velocity. You can see there in the speed, it's just not quite as good as where he would want it.
Skidding around, isn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't look completely comfortable on the sled, if I'm honest.
I think he's going to drop behind Keisinger at this rate. Keisinger is 4 tenths back, and he's already a quarter second behind Marcus Wyatt. Oh, and really uncomfortable off 14.
Yeah, he was quite skiddy there going uphill.
Marcus Wyatt is in the medals, and it is 3rd place at the line, so Keisinger remains 2nd. Keisinger might get something out of this, but the World Cup points leader has a medal as well. So for the 2nd week in a row, and we think last week was possibly the first time that we've had male and female skeleton medals in the same race weekend. It's going to happen again. There we go, we're starting to collect the silverware again.
And just a shame, this run it wasn't really flowing. Something was a little bit off, and you could just see the sled was skidding around a little bit. He just didn't quite have it as he wanted.
Well, compare and contrast the way that Marcus just came into shot straight and left us straight, and nothing happened in between.
Yeah, you could see he was fighting there to try and keep the sled online, which is never quick.
2 to go. Marcus Wyatt leads from Felix Keisinger and Kim Ji-soo, so no pressure at all for Jung Seung-gi. Jung with just 400s gap to the leader after the first heat. His eyes will be on the main prize. He won't be worrying about defending silver. He wants his first ever World Cup win.
Absolutely, and hopefully he's produced a very good start time there, actually better than his first run.
Yep.
Hopefully he can stay in the moment, stay focused and not be thinking too much about those external results, more about what's in front of him on the track right now.
Silver last week in Whistler, his best ever World Cup result. He could match that, he could go one better. He's got the lead over Marcus Wyatt, the speed is good.
It is good, and he's flowing beautifully with the track at this point.
Holding a 2/10 advantage.
He is on the edge. He is letting it run as much as he can. He snuck the sled into 12 there and 14.
Unless he has a cataclysmic failure, and he doesn't, this is going to be at least a silver medal. That might be the run that wins it. Jung Seung-gi has the lead at 48.25. That is the fastest run of this second heat.
That was a lovely run, and you could see he was just finding the balance there between control and letting go. He was letting the sled flow. He knew exactly where his margins were.
And that might be enough for his first ever World Cup win. Last winner on this track, Sun Bin-young, 2017. Could we get a second straight Korean victory?
Korean athletes are so powerful. You can see how much force was going through that last stride there before he got on the sled.
I really felt last year he came on so strong.
And he's so relaxed there as well.
Silver medal last week, his best ever World Cup result. He's matched that at least. Now then, it's only the Olympic champion that separates him from a gold medal. So Jung will take his first, or Grotheer will take his third. One or the other. Last time Christopher Grotheer won a World Cup race, he tied a three-way win with Gung of China and Matt Weston of Great Britain. A tie is not out of the question.
It certainly isn't when the margins are this close.
Ooh, that's a big improvement at the start. 470 in the first heat. He found 900s, maybe just a little less headwind.
Bullet-like form there going down into corner 4. You can see he is so dialed in and focused on what's in front of him.
100th in it.
Building some really nice momentum here through the middle section of the track.
Speed is decent. It's about where Jung was. 200s in it.
This is going to be so close.
Lord. There were 400s in it in the first heat.
Lovely entrance into 12, and I think that set up this bottom section of the track really nicely for him here.
Oh, he's making it look like Winterberg. Best speed of all. It will be a third Korea World Cup win and a track record. I didn't think we were going to get there. A track record of 48.12. That is fantastic stuff. Christopher Grotheer set a new track record in the first heat and in the second heat. He wins his third ever World Cup gold medal. And he has now got as many in the World Cup as he has in the World Championships and the Olympic Games.
That was such a lovely run. It was so relaxed.
And he just is, isn't he? And that's how you know when he's going well. He's got a little smile on his face at the top of the track.
He made that look very easy, which is not easy to do.
So Christopher Grotheer claims victory. And Jung Seung-gi with the silver medal, his second in 2 weeks. Marcus Wyatt with the bronze, so my maths isn't very good. I think Jung might be our new World Cup points leader. We will get those confirmed in a moment, but for now, Christopher Grotheer, well, he didn't have much margin to play with, Laura Dees. He just managed to open up enough.
He certainly didn't, but he didn't need it. That was such a good drive. Great push. He's just all around such a solid performer. You wouldn't bet against him on any day.
Well, he likes the big stage, doesn't he?
He certainly knows how to perform under pressure, that is for sure.
Now, the cynic would say, of course, he took his 2 World Championships on a German track, consecutive years in Altenburg, but he got an Olympic gold medal at Beijing, where almost nobody had any experience other than Chinese sliders. So, going into the World Champs in St. Moritz, who knows? Who knows? Well, there's the result. Christopher Grotheer victorious from Jung Seung-gi and Marcus Wyatt, and then Felix Keisinger ahead of Kim Ji-soo and Austin Florian, a season best, a career high 6th position after popping the groove. And Matt Weston, well, he picked off our rookie Peter McCready's, but set the 4th fastest run of the competition with all of the vim and vigour of that disappointing first heat. So he will come back strong again in Lake Placid. That'll be 2 weeks from now, but we head to Lake Placid at the end of this weekend for the World Push Championships in the brand new ice house. So that's going to be entertaining.
und Elsa. Ich vermisse euch und freue mich, wenn ich
Messages back home from Christopher Grotheer, the Olympic champion, claims the first win of his post-Olympic season. He did make it look like he was at home in Germany, didn't he?
Didn't he? He looked like he had that home track advantage in years and years and thousands of runs of experience.
Yeah. All right, my maths is not great. Marcus Wyatt is still our World Cup points leader from Jung Seung-gi and Christopher Grotheer. Jung just 5 points behind now. Keisinger and Jungk tied. And then Austin Florian just ahead of Kim Ji-soo. So that's the way that the World Cup has shuffled itself around a little bit. Some very Andrew Blaser, Alexander Schlinger tied together, some very tight margins at this early stage of the season. Be interesting to see again what happens in 2 weeks' time in World Cup number 3 in Lake Placid. Until then, though, on behalf of everybody here in Park City for IBSF TV, thank you for joining us. Thank you too for Laura Dees for joining me in the booth. We'll see you tomorrow for all the action from the women's monobob and from the two-man sleds starting at 9:30 local, 16:30 GMT. Until then, from all of us here in Park City, au revoir, as they say.